everybody, I am back with a new TV show review. Wrapping up a lot of the Batman TV shows I've been like grinding throughout the summer. Went through the Batman TAS, Batman Beyond, The Batman. Now I am going through Batman Brave and the Bold. I know there's been other Batman shows like Cape Crusader, which I really not a fan of personally. And then of course there's Beware the Batman, which I like enough, but I'll probably say that for another time for me to go through. But it's a lesser degree of my favorite Batman iterations. But I do like the style, and like I said, I like it enough. But in terms of like Batman TV shows, this is gonna be the last one for a while. After I'm go through these 3 seasons, I'm gonna go back to the anime side of things and go through a lot of My Hero Academia, which I already did the season 1 up on my channel. So I can go in through season 2 moving forward until I get through all the dub. Then I'll figure out what I'm gonna stream next, or at least a review next on the TV show side of things. Maybe Pokemon. I've been been waiting on me to go through all of Pokemon for a good while now, so maybe I'll put that as my next thing to go through, which is a lot. It'll probably take up a lot of the year because it's a lot of Pokemon. So maybe. But anyway, I got a lot of reviews to get through. 3 movie reviews in this TV show. I got myself some pumpkin spice Starbucks, bottle at the corner store, because I don't want to sit there and pass out halfway through because I got a lot to get through. So, season 1 of Batman Brave and the Bold. Now, this series was so unique, and I like where shows like this, or at least superhero related, likes to highlight characters that don't get enough shine. And that's where this show excels and rise up, above, or at least give it its due on the same like level as like other Batman shows. Like, similar to how the Batman, you see other villains highlighted, and that isn't just the same old rotation of people because they're popular. But it isn't just like the villains, it's also heroes, which I thought was so cool because each episode Batman teams up with a particular hero that isn't just Superman, Wonder Woman, who will show up in the next season. Which, kudos to the show for like holding off on that. Usually they want to just like jump the gun, and it's like, okay, we need to sell this. How are we going to sell it? We got to have Batman teaming up with his usual people. But no. We're going to hold off on that, and we're going to have him team up and let like our writing speak for itself as to why. Like, no, we don't need to use Superman or Wonder Woman as a crutch. We already got an awesome IP in Batman. Let him just team up with other lesser known characters like Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle. And I think this show does a huge service to the Blue Beetle lore than almost anything else outside of comics, which the show's kind of banking on the idea that, okay, our audience probably not going to read any Blue Beetle comics just to be familiar with. So we're gonna make sure we, write this in a way to give people interest into the Blue Beetle canon, because Jaime Reyes has been like the main Blue Beetle for a hot while, and every once in a while they touch on past Blue Beetles in the comics, unless you actually actively looking for it, like Ted Cord and Blue Beetle's a legacy character, and I keep blanking on the first Blue Beetle guy. Crap. Dan Garrett. Because Dan Garrett was the first one, then Ted Cord, and then Jaime Reyes. And they got the inspiration of the Blue Beetle mantle because I think Ted Cord was an archaeologist. No, Dan Garrett was an archaeologist who, because the Blue Beetle technology itself is an alien of origin. Now, you want to further know some deep dives, it's a alien race called the Reach who invented these Blue Beetle mechanisms, kind of like alien Iron Man armors, basically. And a little known fact, which is kind of, I'm gonna hold off until the next season because there's a little deeper, thing with the Blue Beetle armors. But basically, it only activates, or the person can actually wield the technology of the Beetle if it deems like worthy, kind of like Mjolnir from Marvel, where it's like only the worthy can actually lift it. So only a person who the tech deems like, oh, this is a compatible host, so I will activate for this person. So even though Dan Garrett and Ted Cord were amazing individuals, they didn't have like what they wasn't worthy essentially the same way as Jaime Reyes would be later down the road. But Dan Garrett decided to base, because basically he turned into like a crime fighter, and Blue Beetle was his moniker. And then he eventually met up with Ted Cord, pretty much, who was like a scientist. And then when Dan Garrett eventually died, Ted Cord took up the mantle. Then Dan Garrett bestowed the Blue Beetle tech on him, figuring like he will probably, with his knowledge, he can probably make it work for him, which he did not. But he, pretty much like, Batman in his own right, but just instead of bat motif, he has a lot of Blue Beetle tech, where he's like created all this tech like a ship and all these gadgets and stuff like that to help him fight crime. Eventually, well, for a while he eventually died and sent the Scarab, that's what it is, the Scarab, out into randomly the earth, and eventually landed in El Paso, Texas, where Jaime Reyes stumbled upon it, but then it bonded to him, so he actually wielded the Blue Beetle tech, turning him into a superhero. And he's been like the mainstay Blue Beetle for a while. For a short period, Ted Cord had died, but I think after DC Rebirth, they kind of, since then, Ted Cord was just been a mentor to Jaime Reyes in order to make him like a better hero and things of that sort. So for a hot while, by and large, people just remember Jaime Reyes being the main Blue Beetle. It would be a while before people are like familiarizing themselves with Ted Cord. I think to this day, not many people realize Dan Garrett was like the first Blue Beetle. but you actually got to do like a bit of the research and everything like that if you want to know more of the Blue Beetle lore. And then we also get like, aside from teaming up with lesser known heroes, we this show is so unique where it actually had a little snippet of a story, like a little prologue before we get to the main story in each episode, where Batman's teaming up with the Question or the Green Lanterns or Huntress or whomever to stop, like we get thrown into them stopping a villain of the week kind of thing. Like on Halloween night, you got like Jay Garrett Flash teaming up with Batman to stop the Scarecrow. It's really dope. It's like, okay, we got a little mini story, kind of like what you saw from like old Star Wars Clone Wars shows, where it's like 15-minute little snippet kind of things. It's almost even shorter than that, but still condensed enough where we pretty much get it, and it's still dope. I think that was really separates the show from the pack, where it's like, yeah, this stands out that way. I don't recall any show doing it the same way as Brave and the Bold has done it, and it's done it so well. And the theme song's amazing. It's just like very action packed. Like it really gets you like, and that's a point of a lot of the shows. It's like the theme song is its own entity. It has to hook you right away, similar to how Pokemon theme song or Sailor Moon theme song or Justice League theme song. It has it has to have its own type of orchestra, or rock music or rap or something that really hooks you in. And it's like, okay, I'm on board. Want to know what the heck this all about. But we also we get like classic Brave and the Bold type of outfits from a lot of these characters. And honestly, I really like the blue-gray outfit for Batman. I think I like it on almost to the same degree as the classic black outfit. It's something because colorful, costumes, and like when's like the Brave and the Bold started. And it's like late 50s, getting into the 60s. Yeah, so that's when like that costume was like at its popular. And sure, like most of the I mean, they played it straight, but it has its goofy moments too. And I love the voice actor for Batman, who at this point in time, since Kevin Conroy has passed, he's like almost like the now go-to actor who you want to be the voice for any Batman properties. I think the only other actor I can think of that can, fit like a Batman voice is the guy. If you ever played Resident Evil, the voice actor for Chris Redfield voiced Batman for the Arkham Origins game. And I like his take on Batman as well. The gravelly, stoic kind of voice. Crap. Was Dietrich Bader, that's the guy's name. Keep blanking on the man's name. Dietrich Bader has done an impressive job in his take on Batman. And I think now that Kevin Conroy has passed, he, as of right now, in my opinion, is like the go-to guy if you want like a. Of course, you can always have other people, who can do their own take on Batman and become like a new, voice for Batman. But in terms of like, if you got the budget, he's the go-to guy, and you want like a guaranteed like hit with the kids, you get Dietrich Bader. Or push comes to shove, you can get the Chris Redfield voice actor, because he done like an impressive job of himself. So those two pop in my mind. But like I said, we get like good team up stories. Plastic Man gets a lot of love too, and it's like, man, it's a lot of characters. It's like, yeah, these guys are awesome in and of their right, and it made, at least for me as a kid, it made me want to. I look up a lot of these characters because I was like, passive familiarity with half of the roster here, and a few are, at least a couple are original, kind of like Harley Quinn, whereas was created solely for the animated series. There's a couple of characters that was created specifically for the show, like Equinox, who is like an overarching bad guy for Batman, who is so dope and should be created for like the mainstay DC Comics, because he is so dope and like uber powerful, and Batman had to take on this guy. But it's like another. He could easily be another Batman rogue, because Batman is all about order, but Equinox is all about order and chaos. He's super obsessed with balance, like to an insane degree. And not only he's a skilled fighter, but he has some bit of mysticism about him, which makes it tough for Batman to actually like deal with him permanently. He always gets to slip on Batman. And the show doesn't shy away from like, some hardcore elements. They touch on kind of stuff, but they, don't show it, but you just let your mind infer it. There's a moment where Equinox fighting Batman on the roof, and he falls off, and then in the shadows it seems like he lands and seemingly falls to a death, but he walks out of the shadows and just waves goodbye to him and disappears. It's like, no, dude like would have be dead, but it's just like, yeah, this is, there's some edgy moments in this show that they don't shy away from, which is important of a balance for Batman. Sure, Batman is one of those characters and shows that is very malleable. It can go super campy or super hardcore. I personally like it when you got a good, ironically, a balance of the two, where like Batman Brave and the Bold in the anime series, and to some extent the Batman Beyond and the Batman did it well, where it has its silly moments, but there's like an edge to it where it's like it's not super kiddie, where adults couldn't enjoy it, and it's not too hardcore where the kids can't watch it. That's like what makes like a perfect Batman show, where you can walk that fine line for between the two and still stay true to the core of what Batman and his lore is about. So I'm gonna go through like certain episodes that I really, really enjoyed. The episode where he teams up with Red Tornado on Christmas, where Red Tornado has like a nice arc here where he's trying to learn everything he can about the human experience. So he wants learn about the spirit of Christmas, and it's kind of like you ever watched that Shrek special back in the day, where he's trying to have like a nice Christmas for his family, even though y'all know about Christianity and Christ in order to have a Christmas. So it's like, religion is a thing in the Shrek lore. Christmas, Christ, God, like, is that a thing? But I guess don't think too much on it. But uh Shrek trying to learn his what it means to because he never had a Christmas before, so he's learning on the go. So he's reading all these books, and it's like, okay, we need a Christmas tree and decorations and presents, and learn about, like, eggnog and things of that sort. So essentially, Red Tornado, who has a pretty dope secret identity where he can actually because he's kind of like a sentient robot, but he has like a disguise to look human, and he's a college professor, which kind of like ideal for somebody like Red Tornado to have a day job and something to do outside of superhero work. And he got powers to generate, essentially aerial kinesis. He can generate wind at a high degree. And he was created by the scientist called T.R. Morrow. Tomorrow. Anyway, he's, he once he saved these kids, from about to be hit by a car, they say something about like the spirit of Christmas or something like that, and of course, Tornado doesn't understand, and it's like, and she was like, one of those little snot-nosed little brats, like, of course not, silly, you're a robot. And it's like, little. It's like, I know kids say the darndest things, but it's like, dang, kid. So, and I love like the voice actor for Red Tornado in this. It's like, because it's like query or declaration or like something like that before he says certain lines. When he's like, he want to ask a question, it's like query. What does it mean for Spirit of Christmas? Things like that sort. That really, like, because Red Tornado only showed up. I mean, of course, he showed up a little bit, but we don't spend much time with him in Justice League Unlimited, which also does a great job of highlighting certain other, lesser known DC heroes. But not everybody. But Red Tornado also showed up in the CW Supergirl, but I think only showed up at least 2 times. But that's just like, dang, that's kind of sucked, because like, oh snap, they using Red Tornado, but of course they had like a particular budget. They can't really utilize Red Tornado, but it's cool to see a Red Tornado in live action. So here we actually get like a fully fleshed Red Tornado. I think this show did a better job in highlighting a superhero of this caliber. So he studies everything he can about Christmas, from all the movies, books, TV shows, specials, all that stuff. He uses powers to decorate his house very quickly. He bakes cookies, and he tries to do caroling, and because he got a robotic voice, it comes off weird and ear scratching. Fa la 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 la. It's like, God, get away from me. But then Batman shows up when this villain, who I never knew about, he's in Funhouse. It's kind of like a discount Toy Man, in my opinion. I think he is Toy Man. Is one of the monikers. Because I think there's been a few different iterations of Toy Man, and one of them goes by Funhouse. So that's why I was thinking, like, man, he's like a discount Toy Man, but he actually is one of the monikers of the Toy Man. And I prefer the Toy Man, kind of like what you see in Superman the animated series / Justice League, where he's just like a short man that almost seems like a kid, but has like a toy boy face that's always smiling but doesn't have any other facial expressions. So he's got that very static smiley face, and I prefer that Toy Man on any other iteration of Toy Man. And Batman shows up to help to stop Toy Man. I was gonna call him Toy Man, to help stop Toy Man. And while Red Tornado is trying to like get Batman involved into the whole spirit of Christmas and things like that. So, and to this day, I can't help but quote Batman in this, because it's always stuck with me, because it's such a Batman thing to say, where it's like, crime doesn't take a holiday, and neither do I. I was like, yeah, of course you would say that, because it's like you hardly ever take a break on this stuff. You always gotta be crime fighting. Literally, like the Robins and Alfred have to really like practically held you down in order for you to freaking relax. Take a beat. But you see like a little bit of backstory with Batman and his history with Christmas, because he remembers the last Christmas he had with his parents. Both, and they usually, when it comes to going over like Batman as a kid with his parents, they usually play fast and loose on when they eventually get shot and stuff like that. And here it's like the day after Christmas or something like that. Usually it's just a regular day, probably in the summertime kind of thing. But here they played it like, oh, it's the day after Christmas or something. So he shows that he was a spoiled little brat at that time, and he didn't appreciate the toy that his parents got him, because it's not the one he wanted or something like that. So they decide, okay, how about we take you to your favorite movie? And it's, of course, The Mask of Zorro. And after they leave the theater, that's when the deed happened. And it's kind of didn't make him a Scrooge per se, not like Batman Noel comic, which is one of my favorite Batman Elseworld stories, which I reviewed on the channel last year. Kind of updated that review last year for Christmas, so you can check that out on my YouTube channel. But but it kind of soured his. That's partly why he doesn't want to actually enjoy the holiday like everybody else is, because he probably just doesn't want to rekindle that memory. But they end up teaming up to stop Toy Man, and after in the ensuing fight, Red Tornado kind of overdoes it with his powers to stop Toy Man's kaiju like toy mech. He feels this like sparking sensation, like, oh my god, I feel it, the Christmas spirit, which kind of rips apart his body a bit, which is just like he's overloading, but he just interpret that as the spirit of Christmas, the tingling feeling. And when Batman eventually gets in his Batmobile, which, by the way, I love the look of this Batmobile, which changes from like, it can parts of it can disperse, so it can turn into a motorcycle. or it can transform into a the bat plane. So it is essentially a freaking transformer, but you kind of accept it, uh, despite the impracticality of it. But I love the look of it because it's kind of like a 3D type of vehicle. Uh, but it blends so well with the animation. And it also can turn into the bat boat too. It's like I think they want to save on certain, save on the budget on, making different bat vehicles. This is like I'll have one bat vehicle and we just have it change forms. And it's like I get it. I think you can probably accept it in some Batman iterations. Some, not all, but it's just like, yeah, like that tracks. I think, there's certain moments like this where you can suspend your disbelief a bit. And it's like, yeah, it tracks for him, for Batman. And he hops into his ride and he sees a gift left by Alfred, which he's never seen in the show. He gets a name drop here. And he gets this kind of like I don't know if you get like a mug or a particular toy. I'm pretty sure it's a mug. This is World Greatest Detective or something like that. And he just, because Batman does a lot of the narration of the show. And he narrates to himself like, Merry Christmas to you too, Alfred. But crime doesn't take a holiday. And neither do I. And of course, he just takes off to the next adventure. This one's a really fun one to me. The Outsiders get some love too, but the episodes they are involved in is one of those lesser favorites I have. There's nothing wrong with them, but I find myself being bored. Not bored. That's too harsh of a word, but just it doesn't. You get your favorites, and then those are the ones that's kind of like flyover state type of episodes where it's like, I can skip this one kind of attitude. It might be fun for others, but to me personally, I just did not care. But we get like Metamorpho, Katana, and Black Lightning. It was kind of fun to see like a young Black Lightning wearing like a hoodie and everything like that, of a hoodie version of his normal costume. Because most iterations of Black Lightning, he's like an adult man who's like a teacher of a school, and he has children, and he's a mature superhero, a well-established superhero. So it's kind of fun to get like a teenage version of that, where you see him like, learning the ropes and things of that sort. And of course, they're young versions of these classic characters, and they're being misled by this villain named Slug, who manipulating these young kids, thinking like, oh, the world's against them. It's kind of like, seeing like young kids get involved in gangs, being misled by a crime boss, essentially. Batman teams up with Wildcat, who in many iterations helped train a young Bruce Wayne in order to be able to know how to fight. Because boxing is one of Batman's repertoires, until he kind of escalates the training to other masters who knows like judo and karate, taekwondo, all sorts of martial arts. And Batman learned boxing from Wildcat, who is an old school superhero, probably in the 40s in most cases, where he was a part of the Justice Society, where he fights bad guys that isn't as fantastical as villains that Justice League normally deals with, but the villains of his day were like just normal gangsters in a lot of cases, or at worst, mad scientists with robots or something. And now he's kind of like an old timer, but still can mix it up a bit. But he has like a heart problems. But Batman has to learn that you're never too old to still want to do some good in the world, essentially. But Batman, because he looks at Wildcat like a pseudo father figure, and he sees like Wildcat as like would have been the age where his father would be right now if he would have lived, and he's kind of overprotective of Wildcat, where he's not, he kind of can't separate himself. Like, this is not my father. This guy is very capable. I can't treat him like a doddering old fool. And Wildcat has to understand that, he can take a beat. He has to pass the baton to somebody like, for superhero stuff. It's kind of like a young person's game. He can contribute, but he has to learn to like pass the baton, train the next generation, pass the baton to people like Batman and the, Katana, Black Lightning, and Metaphorical to take the next leap. So they can then eventually pass the baton to a newer generation that will come after them, like people like Blue Beetle. So it's not like you can't get nothing from this episode, but it's just not personally one of my favorites. Uh, uh, we get the first two part of this show. Honestly, is definitely my favorite. Is where you get introduction to like the crime syndicate, or this interpretation of the crime syndicate, where we in like Earth 3, where I talked about like the crime syndicate in many interpretations, and I think I done a comic book review of the Justice League dealing with the crime syndicate in the New 52 era, because I can't remember if I did or not. No, I don't think I did. Uh, oh yeah, I did. DC Forever Evil. That's what it is. I should like correct that a bit. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, It's one of my first New 52 stories. Yep. I was had a feeling. I know I talked about that. Yeah, I just named it somewhere else. Yeah, I had to correct that a little bit. But yeah, um, yeah, definitely check out my DC Forever, Justice League Forever Evil uh, comic book review on my channel because that one's fun. But I really want to talk about more, because in terms of different iterations of the Justice League, the Crime Syndicate is one of my favorites. I personally really like the Crime Syndicate as part of the Justice League Rogue Gallery because they're so interesting. The world they come from was so interesting, where they just the world is just opposite. The main universe where good will always triumph over evil. In that universe, evil will always triumph over good. That's just the natural law. And it's like these polar opposites of the characters that we know, and it's so interesting. And yeah, and there's other Crime Syndicate stories I want to uh, do reviews about, and I'm strongly considering. There's two of them, but I want to strongly consider at least one of them for this coming October, because Forever Evil, I reviewed it on one of the Octobers for Halloween type of comic book reviews, because he done with like evil superheroes. Why wouldn't that be scary? But anyway, here all the heroes and villains that we've seen thus far, we get to see flipped in different designs of them. We don't get their voice actors or them getting too involved, but just a select some. Where Earth 3 Red Hood steals this phase oscillator that allows you access to alternate Earths. So he, decides, okay, I'm sending like a calling card, which is kind of like a red spade with an X on it, and send it flying through the portal because he's trying to get help. But then he gets stopped by what they call it, the Injustice Syndicate, but it's the Crime Syndicate. Where you see Owlman, Silver Cyclone instead of Red Tornado, Red Scarab instead of Blue Beetle, and Red Scarab is kind of like a freaking sicko because he literally, you made like a joke about like, I got a real heart of a hero. I got him in a jar in the back of my closet, and it's like, God, I mean, like an evil Hiram Reyes is scary as hell. We get Blue Bowman instead of Green Arrow. Dynamite instead of the Atom. And we get to see other interpretations of other heroes that we saw so far in the show, but they don't get any speaking lines or airtime. Like we see like a sickly looking Aquaman. I think in like the Crime Syndicate world, he'd be called like Barracuda or something like that. But he doesn't get any speaking lines. I'm curious to see how his interpretation of Aquaman in this role would be, because Aquaman in this show is always like bold and bombacious, outrageous, like always always telling like these hero stories. It was like, I call this the adventures of Aquaman faces the wilds of the wildebeest or something like that. It's always like very grand and epic, kind of thing. And it's like, I think they kind of anticipated Jason Momoa somehow because yeah, I can see Jason Momoa Aquaman behaving this way. Uh, because he's a hell of a lot of fun every time you see Aquaman show up. So anyway, Red Hood escapes while the crime syndicate used the phase oscillator to peer into the universe where Red Hood tried to look into. Owlman is the only one that jumped through just to kind of like scope out the place. And of course, he ends up in the Batcave after Batman sees the red spade throwing thing. And of course, they both anticipate each other, and they end up throwing their own like the thing. And it, of course, Owlman doesn't have a battering; he has an owl ring or something like that. And Batman throws a spade, and they hit each other. And they're not exactly the same because most iterations of Batman, he has a brother that his parents never told him about because he died very young and he would have been known as Thomas Wayne Jr. In the crime syndicate world, Bruce Wayne would have died along with the parents, and only Thomas Wayne Jr. survived, and he grew into like a villain. And so they're not exactly the same, but sort of. But the only difference is Thomas Wayne Jr. has no qualms about killing or utilizing a weapon, like a gun or something like that. He doesn't have any qualms about going a little further. And of course, if you watch the DC animated film Crisis on Two Earths, that interpretation of Owlman is very good too. Actually has like a owl suit that enhances his strength a little bit, so that way he can actually like go toe to toe a little bit with Wonder Woman. So he has no problem like altering certain things in order to get an edge, because he's and I like that interpretation of Owlman a little bit more, where he's kind of nihilistic to an insane degree, further beyond what Batman would be. Because Batman might seem like he's a little nihilistic, but he has some level of hope in a lot of cases. He didn't lose that anchor of his humanity to the point where his nihilism kind of took over. So Batman, defeats Owlman in a very clever way, because Owlman isn't as clever as, in some cases he is as clever as Batman, but Batman, just slightly better, where he shuts off all the lights in the Batcave, and he anticipates, just because he reads him quickly. He just reads this guy so quickly that it's like he's dressed like an owl. I anticipate he has some kind of mechanism to allow him to see better in the dark, and he makes that statement is like, not a good idea, Batman. And shows that Owlman can read Batman very well just by the outfit they're wearing. It's like, okay, you got some kind of bat motif going on, and you got some owl motif going on. So clearly, you probably will go by Batman, and clearly you will go by Owlman. And Owlman's stated like, okay, not a good idea, Batman. I'll see better in the dark than bats. And Batman's like, I'm counting on that. And he gets these kind of it kind of looked like jumper cable things that lighten up, and he has this flash that kind of blinds Owlman because he has kind of night vision thing going on in his cowl, and it disorients him enough where Batman can like knock him out and cage him up. And studying the phase oscillator, he quickly deduces that, okay, Owlman's an alternate version of me, an evil one. And so I gotta see what's going on. So he goes through the portal to investigate, and he steals Owlman's costume to infiltrate properly. And then he meets up with Owlman's friends. And it's kind of funny here because, Owlman has like a better relationship with his comrades by comparison to Batman and his comrades, because Batman's more of a loner. Occasionally he associates with these heroes in order to help save the day, but he's not like particularly so chummy to the point where he's like he hangs out with them all that often. Where the friends figure like Batman's kind of standoffish and is very brooding, and it's like that kind of thing that they always make fun of him about, whereas like he mostly grunts, like he doesn't really talk much, and but Owlman is very chatty with his friends, and they probably had a great relationship. But Batman has to play the part. He has to come up with stuff on the fly in order to not break his cover. So it's like, they ask him like, is that world prepped for conquering? Because the crime city are always looking a way to try to conquer a place, and the next step would be to conquer another world. But Batman as Owlman states like, no, bad idea. That world is filled with people with powers. So Silver Cyclone thinks like, okay, we'll have to destroy that as a warning to other worlds to not rise up against them. So he comes up with an idea of creating this kind of bomb that would be able to destroy a planet potentially. So they have to go steal this particular chemical that will help facilitate the creation of this bomb. And Blue Bowman slowly kind of like picks on something wrong with Owlman, and it's like why you're so fidgety about this, and like this, and Batman has to like maintain his cover, and is like smacks him around, and it's like, never question me again. It has to play up the part of a villain in order to sell it. But Blue Bowman, like anybody who knows their closest friend, okay, you acting a little odd, so I need to investigate you. So they end up in this lab where Red Hood tries to stop them from stealing this chemical. Then when Batman was initially concerned about a world without heroes, he come to realize, oh, maybe there is heroes here. And he has a moment with Red Hood where he shows him the red spade dagger thing, and it's like, you asked me, you clearly wanted my help, didn't you? And it's like, oh, you're from the other world. Yeah, here's a back communicator. Well, keep it in touch. And he, knocks. Of course, he knows, if you know Batman lore, Red Hood in the mainline universe is like the previous moniker held by the Joker before he became the Joker. Here, the same kind of thing happened with him. Only difference is, while it was an accident, what happened with the Joker with Batman at the Ace Chemical plant, in Earth 3, it was on purpose, where Owlman is trying to stop whatever Red Hood was trying to do to stop him in the ensuing battle. He gets, Red Hood gets, knocked down, and Owlman throws his ass into the chemicals. And the voice actor for, because we get to see the Joker for the first time here, and kudos to the show, holding off on that until halfway through this show, where there's a difference, especially the laughing part. Well, with Joker, It's unrestrained. With Red Hood, it's a little restrained. It's still there, but he still has some level of sanity and to a degree. He still kind of cracked his mind a bit, but he hasn't lost his morality on that front. So, all the villains that we've seen so far in the show, they're good in this universe, but they always end up being beat by these villains because evil will have to always win. That's just the norm. But they all trying to attempt a final stand. They end up getting beat and locked up, which is weird because you'll think like these crime syndicate will just flat out kill them. I read like a decent amount of DC books about the crime syndicate, and they really don't leave any kind of people alive when they beat them most of the time. They have no qualms with killing. But they end up getting locked up in some kind of like their personal holding cells where they're keeping all these heroes. While trying to interrogate Red Hood covertly tried to give Batman directions on how to release all the heroes that was held captive here. Dynamite, Blue Bowman, everybody picks up on the fact that okay, this isn't really Owlman, and of course Batman easily takes these guys out, but ultimately him and Red Hood release all of Red Hood's friends, and they ultimately stop the crime syndicate and lock them up. However, Silver Cyclone figures like, I'm just gonna blow up this universe. Him being a robot is kind of like Skynet. It's like, I don't care about organics at all. Very different from Red Tornado, where it's like, yeah, I'm a robot. I'm better than all of you. But Red Hood, throws a explosive dagger or a spade throwing star thing and blows Silver Cyclone's head, and him and Batman sends the bomb to an alternate Earth filled with zombies to that will safely blow up. Now, at the time when this came out, people just had theories that, oh, you send that bomb to like probably like the Marvel zombie universe and let it go off there. But in the past handful of years, DC has been making these DC Elseworld stories about like DC versus zombies and DC versus vampires, because they're trying to kind of like do their own take on like Marvel zombies or Marvel versus vampires, things they've been doing. I haven't really read those. I don't care for those Marvel zombies or DC zombies or anything like that, because I don't like these bleak ass freaking stories. They're not my thing. From what I'm understanding, people really enjoy them. That's all well and good. Not my thing. Red Hood congratulates and thanks Batman for his assistance, and he says like, I hope my counterpart on your Earth can repay you. And of course, knowing the Joker, it's like Batman says he doubt that. He goes back home and he notices that now time has passed, whereas like the phase oscillator not only allows you to pass through alternate dimensions, but it alters time, whereas where it's only been like probably like a few hours for him in this alternate Earth, it's been 3 weeks he's been gone. And in those 3 weeks, Owlman eventually broke out of the holding cell, and he took one of Batman's older costumes. Matter of fact, he took the costume he would have worn in his first issue of Detective Comics, where the purple gloves and the old first costume he ever worn, and he does certain poses that's reminiscent to poses you would have seen in like those old Batman covers. Even when he wields a gun, it's very reminiscent of the time where Batman, for that one issue, actually wielded a gun in like those older Batman comics. So I thought that was very cool homage to uh, older Batman stories. So now all the heroes are going after Batman, thinking like, "Oh, you turned coat on us," and it isn't so hard for them to believe, given the fact that Batman's always been that very loner. They just assume like, yeah, I had no doubt he probably would have snapped or something like that. So Joker teams up with Batman, whereas like, because Joker knows Batman better than almost anybody, and it's like, he points out to Batman, it's like, if the evil you is as good as being evil as you are being good, then you'll need a wild card. You need a Joker. And of course, Batman points out he's insane, but he's right. In order to take on somebody like Owlman, who's nearly as good as he is, I need like an added mix to tip the scales. So I love the animation style what they did with Joker, where his facial features and the animation movements. It's hard for me to put into words, but I love how it is stylized, and he's moving around, and the big grin, and the voice actor is like, all of it works so well in this. And I love the jokes in this. And Batman tells him like, if we're gonna work together, no killing and no hurting innocent people. And he pulls out all these little gadgets and gizmos, like too shooty, too stabby, and he pulls out a pie like too fruity. And it's like, it gets me every time he says that. And then he pulls out bazooka, and as Batman and Owlman are fighting, and Joker's like, the real one will move. He always does. And it's like, yeah, he knows Batman so well. It's like, I can shoot this thing, but of course he guesses wrong. Owlman gets out of the way instead. But ultimately, after Owlman kidnaps, because he kidnaps Batman's friends, and utilizing records that Batman had kept, harkens to the Tower of Babel story, where Batman created all these contingency plans in order to take down a lot of the superhero community that he worked with, in case they're subjected to mind control, or their powers are stolen, or something of that sort, so that way he can easily neutralize them quickly and efficiently. Not to kill, but Owlman breaks into his computer, hacks it, steals that information. So now he wrangles up a lot of the villains in order to hold these guys hostage, because Owlman wants the phase oscillator that Batman has in order to go back home and mount a counter attack, pretty much like, because if Owlman gets the phase oscillator and goes back home, he will release all his comrades and mount a full-blown it'd be a full-blown war, universal war, that hardly not many people will end up surviving. So of course, and this I call cap a bit, because once Batman and Joker show up, Owlman has trapped Batman in this little machine, and there's another machine that dips like hot wax on things and solidifies them into like a almost like a statuesque thing. He hands the button or the control device to Joker and is like, "Here, Joker, I got Batman gift wrap for you." And of course, Joker is like, "Hey, sorry, Bats. I mean, like, we had some fun and I gave the whole good guy thing a good clown college try, but it's too good to pass up." But I'm thinking to myself, okay, Joker, from my understanding of Joker, he would not allow other people to just hand him Batman. That takes the fun out of it for him. It's similar, because I remember in the animated series when Harley Quinn manages to capture Batman hook, line, and sinker and try to hand the kill to Joker to finish it up, Joker was irritated to an insane degree where it's like, I don't want people to just hand me Batman. I don't want that. This doesn't satisfy. I mean, you take the fun out of it. You took the fun out of it for me. And Joker would think this way. He does not want Batman gift wrap for him to just like, here you go, kill him now. And it's like, that would probably work for almost any other villain but him. He enjoys the chase. He loves the game of it all. And if you take that part away, then what's the whole point of it? And of course, that's why I call Cap on this thing, because Joker would not. He would have crushed that thing or destroyed it immediately, and just be so irritated that he will just gas the entire room with laughing gas or Joker toxin, because he will not. He'll be livid by that, and he'll consider that an insult. But then Batman used the phase oscillator to escape, and they kind of backtrack or backpedal the what they established earlier by time being skewed a bit whenever you travel to altered dimensions. He was gone literally a minute, but to his perspective, he spent like a few days going to alternate Earths to gather other variations of Batman through different, and it's kind of like homaging different moments in Batman's history where he's like vampire Batman, reminiscent to Red Rain Elseworld story where Batman became a vampire, and other stories where Batman has like a big head and from a machine that alternated his brain chemistry to make him look super intelligent, and one where he's a pirate and one he's like an old West style cowboy and all this other stuff in order to take on all these villains and Owlman while rescuing all his friends. They stopped the villains and captured Owlman to send him back to his world to be locked up. And he, Batman has like a heart-to-heart with Joker, and you get to see a moment where when they was working together, there's a part of Joker that, if things didn't turn out the way they did, these two would have been an awesome duo. And Batman points out, maybe deep down, there is some bit of humanity with Joker. But then, of course, Joker then, after a little, somber moment, is like, I will return, and it's a conquest and crime, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, Batman's like, okay, then maybe not. But it was like a nice two-part. I love this. It's like honestly my favorite. Out of the entire series, this is my favorite. But then we continue on with him dealing with Equinox popping up randomly where he, whenever there's an imbalance, he tries to balance the scales, like when Gorilla Grodd was trying to duke it out with the question. Equinox captured both of them, and over this scales of justice death trap where you're leaving Batman to choose, like, will you save your friend? Then Gorilla Grodd will die in his lava pit. Or if you save Gorilla Grodd, then your friend will die. Which side do you choose, evil or good? And of course, Batman deduced, like, someone who's obsessed with balance will never allow one or the other. So he found a mechanism where it saves both, kind of thing. But over time, we come to understand that, okay, Equinox was created by the Lords of Order and Chaos, who also works with Dr. Fate. And they soon realized that long ago, the Lords of Order and Chaos chose an infant to bestow their power on, to be essentially their herald in order to maintain the balance of the universe. When one side gets too big, Equinox comes in to balance things out. But the responsibility became so great to him where he couldn't mentally handle it, so he kind of snapped. So now he's abusing his power to balance everything. And so he steals the power of the Lords of Order and Chaos, assuming they're dead, steals that power in order to create a energy ball in order to pretty much wipe the slate clean in the universe, and so he can reform it in his image where everything is in perfect balance, because everything is so imbalanced. It's kind of like he was like the Thanos before Thanos, essentially, where he's wants perfect balance. So Dr. Fate comes up with the idea where he gathers all, at least most of the heroes that we saw from the show so far, where he takes their powers and imbues them into Batman. And of course, Batman throughout this entire series gets these cool costumes, a variation of his costume, like a Green Lantern suit, or in the next episode, at least one episode where he teams up with Etrigan in the past, where he teams up with Sherlock Holmes, and he gets his cool like Gotham by Gaslight costume to help Etrigan stop the Gentleman Ghost before he becomes Gentleman Ghost. But he's kind of like stealing the souls of these women. I guess he would have been like the Jack the Ripper of the time, but it won't go with that. It's something that you just assumed, given the time period and the cover of it all is very harkens to the history of Victorian England, whereas like the Ripper killings. So they kind of like use that as a base and just inserted Gentleman Ghost James Craddock into it. But you get to see these cool costumes. Here you get his ultimate costume from Batman, where he's like tangling. It's a kaiju battle between Batman and Equinox. And he takes it out into space to avoid collateral damage. But then Batman, deduces, okay, I can't battle him head on. It's gonna be like just like a stalemate, essentially. So instead of fighting, I'll surrender. But then he queries to Equinox, you're not balanced yourself. And it's like, what are you talking about? You hate your masters. And of course I hate them. And then it dawns on him like, oh my God, I'm not balanced. It's like, I shouldn't hate them. But I do. And it discombobulated him. Batman knocks him into the orb, destroys Equinox, and ceases the destruction of the universe. And essentially, the world is saved, and Batman drops the line, "We're in a brave, bold new era," kind of thing. The of course, you got like name drop the title of the show, but I don't want to end the video without bringing up my two other favorite episodes, where Batmite shows up because he's been watching this show because he's breaking the fourth wall, and it's like he shows up to Batman as he's trying to stop these criminals, and it's like he's really watching the show along with the audience, and it's like, come on, Batman, take them down. You can take on like he changes the criminals into ninjas with swords, and he just shows himself, and it's like, hi, Batman, I'm your biggest fan. And Batman is just like every Batman fan in the world. And he wants, like, just like, okay, I want to make you the greatest hero ever. So he's like throwing all these villains at Batman, like Gorilla Grodd, then Solomon Grundy, and then Batman's like, Calendar Man. What Calendar Man? And you see Calendar Man, and Batman changes him into Calendar King, where he gives him the power to summon any type of holiday mascot to take on Batman. And you see like him summoning this biker gang of Santa Clauses riding motorcycles with reindeer decoration, killer mutant Easter bunnies, and these muscle-bound Uncle Sams, and to take on Batman. And then Batman's just beating them all until Batman finally knocks out Calendar Man. And thinking he got rid of Batman, Batman's still lingering around and overhears Batman, talking trash about him. So Batman gets in his feelings and then tries to, says like, I want to make you my plaything until you break. And then he sends all these different types of obstacles Batman's way, and Batman, of course, taking them all down, but he realizes, okay, I'm not going to play his game. And he's like, okay, you got to fight. You're Batman. I was like, well, I don't want to be Batman. If you want to be Batman, why don't you do it? But I always watched you. I never thought. I was like, live the dream, big shot. And so Batman decides to try to do what Batman does, but he's incapable, realizing he's incapable of doing what Batman does. It's kind of like speaking to the audience who always thought like they can always be Batman because Batman's so relatable. We can just work out and get gadgets and we can just do what Batman does. But no, it's a lot more to Batman than what we see on the surface, where you gotta act the mental and physical willpower in order to do what Batman does. It's a lot goes into what being Batman than you realize. And Batman is perfect to show this lesson to, because Batman is a lot of Batman fans out in the world. And I love the moment where like Batman, takes like the, part of the show into this whole, kind of Comic-Con convention area. And you see like the writers of the show on the panel. And you see all these folks in the audience dressed as Batman, except these two who I'm assuming is a couple dressed as Joker and Harley. And a lot of them was like, in different sizes. One's overweight and some are skinny and some got a dad bod. It's like typical audience that you probably see at a Comic-Con or any convention at all. And there's one dude in this like, not fit right suit. And it's like, you got Batman fighting mutant Easter bunnies? I'm sorry, he's just not my Batman. And it's just like, God, that is like definitely a lot of conventions. They do a lot of good work on this show. And I love this episode. And Batman reads the was written down by the writers, and really speaks to what makes like a good Batman show, because there's been many iterations of Batman, but deep down it's just like a story about a young boy who still cries out for, who still longs for his mommy and daddy. I mean, you gotta look up or watch this episode on Max, and you hear this line of dialogue. That is something that every person who wants to make a Batman show has to keep that as a frame of mind, and instead of trying to go off the rails, trying to like, rattle the cages or shake things up and try to do things completely off the scale and saying like, oh, well, there's been many interpretations of Batman, so this should be okay for you. Like, no, we still need you to hold on to that core. I was like, with like the animated series, The Batman, Brave and the Bold, even Beware the Batman, it's like, or Batman Beyond, they still have that core, that tree trunk, and they're just a branch off the Bob Kane story. You're just a branch, but you're gonna do your spin on it, like Brave and the Bold. You got Batman teaming up with all these heroes, and he says lines of dialogue like hammers of justice and things of, can't be corny lines like that, but you still have that core where your mind still thinks like, yeah, they're still right on the mark. No matter what he's done, he's still right on the mark and of who Batman is. And you gotta keep that frame of reference whenever you make a new Batman story. Anyway, after Batman learned this lesson, he leaves Batman alone. But some might assume the way it ends, where it's like now he's bothering Green Arrow, dressed as a Green Arrow. Like, I'm your biggest fan. I'm not sure if that is the same Batmite, because Batmite comes from the fifth dimension, similar to Mr. and Mrs. Picklick, who often bothers Superman, but he's more villainous, while Batmite is just like a obsessed fanboy. I don't know if that's just is the same Batmite, but now obsessed with Green Arrow, or is just like a different imp altogether who is just a fanatic for Green Arrow. I mean, you can go either way with it, but given the fact that it's the same voice actor for this guy and not somebody completely different, can easily believe that, oh, he just found like a different obsession. But it'll be kind of cool where it's like we see this, because we get to see a bit of the world of the fifth dimension in Superman the Animated Series, where we see Mr. and Mrs. Picklick for the first time, or at least a couple of times. We get to see the world briefly, but it'd be cool where we get to see in some capacity, whether in comics or a TV show, where we actually see many different imps, all of them either obsessed, well, just definitely obsessed with different DC characters. Like, imp obsessed with Wonder Woman, or one is obsessed with Blue Beetle, and just like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, that'd be fun. It's like, why haven't we gotten a new interpretation of these imps from the fifth dimension? Just maybe it's because we get repetitive, but not if you get a good writer involved, where it's like, okay, Wonder Woman now has like a obsessed imp woman who is just like trying to give her like a good story, because Batman and Superman's hogging all the screen time from you. Like, I love you, Wonder Woman. That's like, let me take on the cheetah with you, and just like, follow her coattails all day long, and just kind of annoying her. And she has to figure out a way to send her back. Of course, it's got to be a female fifth dimensional imp bothering Wonder Woman, or get one bothering Green Arrow or Blue Beetle or Black Lightning or somebody, because that'd be kind of fun. Now, I want to wrap up this video talking about another favorite. This is kind of like a musical, but it's like one of the best musicals I've ever seen in a show, where Neil Patrick Harris stars as the Music Meister. And there's been at least a couple of interpretations of the Music Meister since then, but this one's I argue, the best one, because we get one in the Harley Quinn show where it's kind of like a CeeLo Green looking dude who's trying to be like a marriage counselor for Batman and Catwoman, which, it's okay. Not my favorite interpretation, because I kind of lost my enthusiasm with the Harley Quinn show, if I'm be perfectly honest. I think that show should just wrap up, in my opinion. But then there's the one from the Arrow show in live action, who is like another member of the show Glee. I never watched Glee, but Grant Gustin and Melissa Benoist were Glee alumni, and of course they get like a 2-part special between the two of them, with Arrow and Supergirl sharing between the two, where Music Meister is showing up and trying to mend the hearts of these two heroes who kind of like are feeling some type of way, from what I remember. And none of these guys' songs, because Music Meister has to be a great singer, and these guys, all of them who did their own interpretation of the Music Meister, are great singers in their own right. Not taking that away from them, but something about what Neil Patrick Harris has done, and the people behind this to make this episode so good. The songs are so freaking memorable, and the production of it all has is just a step above the rest. Has no other interpretation is done as good as this. I'm sorry, it just is. And it's like Jarvis Bats, and of course Neil Patrick is a great singer. I love Neil Patrick Harris, and he should be Music Master in every interpretation. He's the only one who can do this, in my opinion. It was a great choice casting him. And of course, you learn a little bit about his backstory, where it's like he has a hypnotic voice. So every time he sings at a certain pitch, it puts people under his thrall. And I love every time he shows up, he wearing some different type of costume, reminiscent to some type of musical thing, like a musical conductor or a rock band type of rock star, or just different outfits, harken to some type of musical theme to it. And he steals from the villains this they plan on utilizing this rocket that the UN was trying to use in order to properly communicate with the world, to be more unifying, but he ends up stealing it in order to enhance his musical thralls, to get everybody under his sway. And of course, Batman, teams up with Black Canary, Green Arrow, in order to, and of course, Aquaman, in order to stop the Music Meister. But man, the songs are just so good. What is it? Oh, he dressed as Liberace at one point, a 70s disco star, Elvis, a punk rocker, Kiss, Amadeus, conductor, Phantom of the Opera. It's like, it's like a whole freaking production. A Zoot Suit. Uh, what is the songs? And of course, it's written by Neil Patrick Harris, because obviously, uh, I'm the music meister. Uh, he drives bats, bats, bats. He really drives us bats, bats, bats. He drives us bats. Oh God. Uh, and of course, we get a cool moment where Black Canary is singing a duet with Green Arrow when they're connecting. When at first she was kind of obsessed with Batman, but it's like he doesn't feel that way about her because obviously he's obsessed with kind of Catwoman. Honestly, he has a thing with Catwoman. Uh, 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 but yeah, man, I encourage you guys to look up like the Music Master songs. Very good. Uh, and but Batman finally stops a Music Master by, you know, stealing his microphone and put it to Black Canary's voice as she's singing at such a high pitch. Her, of course, she has like a supersonic vocal sound, and it just shatters the mechanism that holds people's the world at his under his sway. Now he knocks out like Music Master, like put a sock in it, and it's like God, it's so dope. Yeah, and I wish we get more Music Master. That was like an amazing episode. So yeah, man, that was yeah, those are like my favorite, like, you know, at least the ones that really stood out to me. There's been other favorite episodes and stuff like that. Uh, uh, you know, like the Color of Revenge with Crazy Quilt, again, revenge on Robin. You get to finally see Robin and Batman team up. I'm assuming it's Dick Grayson. I think he is, because we get to see Nightwing in the next season. Uh, but yeah, man, that is so much freaking fun. Of course, Trials of the Demon, where Batman is summoned by Jason Blood back in time in 19th century London to help team up with him and Sherlock Holmes to stop an older Jim Craddock before he summons this kind of demon. And honestly, I did not care for the way how Sherlock Holmes is treating Dr. Watson like he's like a bumbling fat idiot. And it's like, maybe it's because the Robert Downey Jr. interpretation of Sherlock Holmes, where Jude Law's Dr. Watson is like, I think, more my speed. I haven't read much of the older Sherlock Holmes story, but it's just like, I don't like the idea of the fact that he's a doctor and like a war hero, from my understanding of the lore of Sherlock Holmes, that it's like, why you treat him like an idiot? It's like, what did I tell you about thinking? Don't. It's like, God, I did not care for that. But honestly, but yeah, those kind of stood out for me. So I'm going to be trying to binge through season 2. Whenever I'm done, I'll talk about that. But I'll be stepping into my movie review, starting like the Halloween reviews going forward, because there's a lot this year I want to get into. But anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of Batman Brave and the Bold. What was your favorite episodes out of season 1? Which villain and hero stood out for you? I think Plastic Man and Blue Beetles, in terms of heroes that teamed up with Batman that stood out, they definitely stood out for me. Of course, I do like Green Arrow, but his costume, although it was like the 60s version, the modern interpretation, especially ever since the Green Arrow TV show, the hood and everything like that, I like that interpretation of Green Arrow more so than any other interpretation. Because I get it, he's doing the whole Robin Hood thing, but I think thanks to Stephen Amell, it kind of really set the tone of what Green Arrow should look like, period. Anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit as I cover Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Take care. Have a great weekend.